But yeah, let's move on
Yeah.
to some more serious topics, David.
Yeah, no, let me just take a deep breath and set this up because this is really important.
Yeah.
Um, we've been talking a lot about what's happened, here in Texas in the aftermath of the of this horrible storm, and just how it has exposed how weak our utility systems are in this country. And even though people use the term constantly to describe these systems as public utilities, across the country, there is very little that is public about these utilities. They have been cannibalized by private interests. And whether it be electricity um, or gas or water, private interests are not your friends. And years of neoliberalization of our, state and local governments has also really hampered our ability to provide basic services that you should be able to get in any kind of functioning democracy, let alone one of the wealthiest societies in the history of the world. I bring this up because I'm going to tell two different stories about water in this country that show the bizarre relationship that we have to a resource that is undoubtedly a human right. And how at one moment it is extremely plentiful when the capitalists want to bottle it up and sell it, and then extremely scarce when working people are asking for some kind of basic relief from their water bill. And so let me start here. I apologize to my friends in Florida if I'm mispronouncing this spring here, but in Ginny Springs, Florida, which is a massive and very beautiful spring in northern Florida near Gainesville. This spring is under attack from none other than Nestle. Recently, there has been significant pushback from the community who have been asking why Nestle, this massive corporation, has been able to buy so much water and bottle up so much water from their community. And they've been met, with the most part, with crickets, right? So in High Springs, Florida, activists have been claiming that these private interests are overusing their springs, which is a problem in and of itself. But they're also asking the question, which is extremely reasonable, again, in any democracy: what is in this for our community? The company that is bottling it up, again, is not directly owned by Nestle, but Nestle buys all their water from them, right? So it's an intermediary. Um, so they bottle up the water from these springs, and then they sell that on to Nestle. They successfully fought off an attempt by activists and environmentalists in the community to block their permit application. This company, Seven Springs Water, is owned by the Ray family, which in the area owns a bunch of like outdoor attractions, very well-off family in the community. This company is draining around 984,000 gallons a day from Ginny Springs, and they got this contract for the next 5 years. So you would think, that's a lot of water. I'm sure they're making a pretty profit from Nestle. They're not doing this for free. How much did they have to pay into the community? $115. And that's just for the permit application. And when the state of Florida, when their state water management district asked for a copy of the bottling plant's contract, they were told the company could not disclose due to their NDAs with Nestle. You want to talk about, the problems in this system? It's the fact that our government just accepts nonsense from these, international corporations right there, where they're just bottling up large amounts of water. And when they say, how much money are you making? Because they might want to, start asking questions like, okay, maybe we might need to be getting some funds from this to be able to support our communities, to fight pollution in our communities, to make sure that this spring that you are taking nearly a million gallons a day from is going to be here 15 years down the line, let alone 5 years when your contract lines up. They're being told, oh, no, this is private information. But they're using public space. They're using public water, right?
NDAs, man. Like, how on earth is that? Well,
No, I mean I mean, first of all, it's a BS excuse. And if you had a government that was really willing to take on
right,
these corporations, they could get through that, right? But this is just the kind of thing, which is why it's so hard living in the society that we're living in today. When you're just like a local activist trying to organize your community around these questions, if you don't have the full weight of the state behind you, you're not going to get very far. And we have to start understanding these things as one. We don't want water to be something that is privately controlled for very obvious reasons, right? We just don't want to have to be asking Nestle to make sure that they can provide us with shares of our water in the future. Um, and two, this is also a very general question. If there's so much profit being made off of our natural resources, maybe the community should be getting a taste of that, or at least a cut. Um, but this is basic democracy stuff that we have to get more comfortable with, like reclaiming that language to say,
Hmm.
oh, it's not just a big corporation coming in causing trouble. This is very clearly a democratic question. This is our land. We own this as a society and as a people, right? And that's the kind of framework that we need,
Yeah,
because you
commons
don't have
enclosure.
it's commons enclosure, exactly. And in this country we have been so used to this as like a reality that we need to just go back to those old school ways of framing these things to understand, as James Connolly says, like, our demands are modest. We demand only the earth, right? This belongs to us, right? We are we're the
Yeah.
stewards of the earth, right? This is something that we own together. Because I want to contrast what's going on right here with this private profit of natural springs to what happens on the other side of the equation when it comes to water across New York State right now. And this is not a problem that is unique to New York State. Um, Thousands upon thousands of families are in what they are calling water debt, which is a disgusting phrase in and of itself. Water debt in New York State is climbing into the millions of dollars, with people who are facing the threat of shutoffs as a way to extort money from them, right? Again, water is life. We need this to survive. And these huge again, these organizations, these, public utilities that are supposed to act in our interest are essentially threatening all of these folks with shutoffs. Now, in New York, there has been a moratorium on shutoffs, right? And in a lot of municipalities, you're not allowed to do shutoffs in general, but that is not across the state. And the statewide moratorium is set to end at the end of the month, right? So we're seeing people who are being threatened with $1,200 water bills who are unable to pay it. And I just wanted to paint a thread here, right? So again, on one hand, water is plentiful, and it's no big deal if Nestle's coming into your community and bottling up all the water and selling it for massive amount of profits that are not going into the community. And on the other hand, water is this precious resource which you can't afford, and actually we're going to cut off your access to it because you don't have $1,000 to spare right now in the middle of a pandemic, right? See the kind of dangerous game we play when we turn water into a commodity. I want to point out one particular player, Veolia, which is a French corporation, which is deeply entrenched in water systems around this country. The most famous example of municipal failure when it comes to providing water for people is Flint, Michigan. Well, guess what corporation was entrusted with updating and managing Flint's water system? This French corporation, Veolia. Same thing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which ended up kicking them out of Pittsburgh after realizing that for years and years and years, this private company, which again has one goal, and that goal is to make money, did not have the interests of the city at heart. We talked recently about another water crisis, the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. And if we have this up here, another familiar player starts showing up in Jackson in 2017. The French company Veolia coming in to work with their wastewater plant, right? Recent storms, recent natural, these recent, catastrophic events have shown the weakness in our systems. There's a lot of different factors. There's government failure, which is a crisis of like neoliberalism, which again is an outpouring of capitalist power trying to weaken public control over our systems, right? But fundamentally, these are the kind of problems that you face when you turn something that is as basic and as, frankly, as plentiful as water into a commodity to be controlled by the few. It's something that we should not accept in the United States. It's something that we should not accept across the globe, because you're seeing more and more that the more speculative parts of capital are trying to invest in controlling the water systems in the future. And we can't allow that to happen. This is a basic question of human survival, dignity, and democracy. Water should never be a commodity.
It's amazing the different types of debt you hear and what it tells you about the society, like student lunch debt, medical debt, or water debt. Like it's sickening just conceptually. um,
But
yeah,
it's amazing too, right? How you can go from, oh, water is like something that we can just pull out and like, oh, we don't owe you anything for this, to, oh, actually, like you owe us an incredible amount of money for this. And we're going to prevent you from having access to water if you don't, line the pockets of certain folks with your money.
man, I thought Nestle was just chocolate, and now I think of them
Oh, dude, Nestle's the worst,
every
man.
time I'm thirsty. Like, what if this is the last water I ever drank?
Well, the Nestle, I can't remember who it was, but one of Nestle's executives said that he doesn't believe that water is a human right.
Well,
Which
Nestle
should show
exec,
you, which is should be very worrying as we're seeing that Nestle is taking more and more control of water systems across the
yeah.
globe.
I don't think being a Nestle exec is a human right, or Nestle existing as a company right. Yeah.
Yeah.